What is Bergsonism? Just now, the most powerful spiritual force among intelligent people is Bergsonism. What is it? Henry Bergson is a professor of philosophy in Paris. Crowds attend his lectures. Young men are enthusiastic over his ideas. Scientists see in him a new leader. Women find in him a new religion. However, he himself is a plain, sane man. He has no system. To him, Bergsonism is absurd. He says nothing of God, of the soul, of morals. But for all that, he has done more than any one man to redeem the 20th century from the nightmare of pessimism. In a nutshell, Bergsonism, if I may use the word, is an emphasis upon the instincts of men. The world has been cursed with a rule of reason. Philosophy after philosophy has arisen, each rigidly argued out, and the end of all of them has been ashes in the mouth. Henry Bergson leads the sick soul of the world back to its primal feelings. Intelligence is merely a critical and practical faculty. The race progresses, creates, moves, and loves by its instincts. This is but a hint of the gist of Bergson. I am a Bergsonite. I was one before I ever heard of him. I can hardly think without tears of the immense debt we owe to this man who has saved the thinking world a dozen ways. His essay on the immediate gifts of the consciousness demonstrates we are free, that our actions are original and bear the seal of our personality. In a second work, Matter and Memory, he gives a new solution to the world-old problem of the relation of spirit and body. In Creative Evolution, his greatest work, he establishes a new theory of the development of life. Bergson removes the terrible lassitude from modern thought by addressing himself to the secret depths of the consciousness and drawing us away from the abuse of reasoning. He declares man to be the crown of creation, that we are freed from iron necessity, that we continually leave the impress of our personality upon nature, and that we are capable of throwing down all things that resist and of overcoming all obstacles, perhaps even death itself. Bergson is the greatest ally of faith, of the spirit, because he is not an ally, but disinterested. He brings powerful and timely aid to the work of Carlyle, Ruskin, and Emerson, the work of emphasizing the importance of me, against all matter, force, logic, and institutions. He is a godsend to all of us who hate the Philistines. Democracy and Socialism. Why is it, asks a correspondent, that you are always talking of democracy, and while you praise socialism often, yet you insist that you are not a socialist? Is not socialism pure democracy? Why don't you come out flat for socialism? Because socialism is European. It is the best Europe can do. In America, we have something better: democracy. Socialism is an ism, or theory. Democracy is a cracy, or a power. Socialism is a scheme. Democracy is a growth. Socialism is artificial. Democracy is natural. Socialism is a dream of men. Democracy is the outworking of destiny. Socialism appeals to the class spirit. Democracy loathes it. Socialism is an air plant, a fungus growth subsisting upon the branches of the future. Democracy has its roots in the past. Socialism proclaims revolution, democracy evolution. Both revolt at injustice and herald the era of equality, but the one is to be by the will of men, the other by getting into line with the deep purpose of that power in whose mind is the great universal plan. Democracy is something being wrought out now in the workshop of actual conditions. It is a word being made flesh by infinite pains, a lesson which a nation is labouring good-naturedly to learn by practice. Democracy means patient readjustment of things as they are, in order to get things as they ought to be. Socialism is fiercely impatient for fruit, with a contemptuous disregard of tree and soil. Democracy is the determined effort of the new world. Socialism is the petulant gesture of the old. Socialism is represented by the wish of Omar to grasp this sorry scheme of things entire and remould it nearer to the heart's desire. Democracy is expressed in the lines of Tennyson. Yet I doubt not through the ages one increasing purpose runs, and the thoughts of men are widened with the process of the suns. Socialism is a phase of democracy, one of the effects of the spirit of democracy working in men's minds. Hence we are in favour of whatever there is in socialism that helps along democracy, but do not join the party because it carries a lot of European byproducts for which democracy in the United States does not care. With a noble persistence, democracy applies itself to the complex and baffling task of making things better without smashing those things our fathers got from an untoward world and bequeathed to us. America is committed to no well-tinkered scheme, to no utopian plan that leaves the instincts of human nature and the practicalities of our present immaturity out of mind, but throughout her history have statesmen at her council met who know the seasons when to take occasion by the hand and make the bounds of freedom wider yet. The Master's Hand. Pictures and Other Passages from Henry James is a slim volume of selections from the writings of Henry James. Henry James has the reputation of being very hard to read, very obscure, and very highbrow. He is, but it all depends on what you want. If it's a story, read Conan Doyle. If it's fun, read Mark Twain. If it's preaching, read F.W. Robertson. If it's facts, go to the encyclopedia. But if you enjoy the witchery of sheer words, if you love a literary style as exquisite as Benvenuto's style in Metal, and above all, if you are a young writer and want to study one whose writings are the top of ingenious perfection, give hours of slow Fletcherizing to Henry James. The little book before us ought to be every aspiring author's bedside book, to be picked up now and then, and to be read slowly as a child hunts and eats strawberries from a patch, and reread meditatively as a cow ruminates. Just to show you the master's hand, I will set down here a few of his subtle word combinations. Do you know anywhere in literature you can overmatch them? The air was like a clap of hands. There was a household quietness in her step and gestures. There was something in his quick brown eye that showed you he was not economizing consciousness. New York, the youngest and easiest and most good-humoured of capitals. A countenance almost chemically clean and dry. A graveyard where the very headstones themselves seemed to sleep as they slanted into the grass. Everything in France is a picture, even things that are ugly. Her high-held, much-rubbed hands seemed always assenting exuberantly to something unsaid. The villa stood on the summit of an olive-muffled hill. A large, bright, dull, murmurous, mild-eyed, middle-aged dinner. Across the level of a meadow a footpath wandered, like a streak drawn by a finger over the surface of a stuff. Her spell sprang not from her beauty. She exercised the magnificent power of making her lover forget her face. Having hustled all sensibility out of their lives, they invented the fiction that they felt too much to utter. So frank, yet so mysterious. Observing her, he seemed to see the vague circle which sometimes accompanies the partly filled disk of the moon. In her, fate had found an adversary and not a victim. The extraordinary fineness of her flexible waist, the stem of an expanded flower. . Though she was not tall, she appeared to spring up. her thin-lipped smile as prompt to act as the scrape of a safety match. A witty expression that shone like a lamp through the ground glass of her good breeding. She was as undomestic as a shopfront. There was something public in her eye, which was large, cold, and quiet. A robust, unmodulated person. She felt in italics and thought in capitals. He would have been ugly had he not been happy. He had fatally stamped himself as a man who could be interrupted with impunity. Thin lips, curving like scorched paper. All of which illustrates what I mean when I say, if you would be a wordsmith and aspire to excellence, give your days and nights to Henry James. Your competitor. Your competitor is not necessarily your enemy. He can be your friend. A common mistake is that there is just so much business to be had, and that the rival cuts your trade in half. That is not true. As a rule, the more tradesmen, the more trade. A good, lively competitor will increase your custom. 2 first-class groceries in a block are better for both than a monopoly would be for either. The place for a young lawyer to hang out his shingle is not a town where there are no lawyers, but a town where there are many, and good ones. Where the carrion is, there the eagles are gathered together, and where no eagles hover, there is slim picking. If you are a young graduate from a medical school, don't go to some forsaken neighborhood where there are no doctors. Go where physicians flourish. Competition does not kill trade. It builds trade, makes new trade, stimulates trade. No one can get all the business possible in any community. His personality attracts some, repels others. There's always a lot of business for somebody else. Don't shy from your competitor. Don't assume he's your foe. Get acquainted with him. You may learn something. Don't knock your competitor. Don't encourage busybodies who bring you tales of him. Be a good sport. Play the game. Keep good-natured. Beat your competitor if you can, but remember the surest way to beat him is to sell better goods, to use fairer methods, and to be more courteous. Don't play the cut-price game with him. Keep your margin of profit fair. Cutting prices is cutting the throat of success. If your competitor lies about you, or uses underhand means to harm you, never mind. You go on and be on the level and look pleasant. You can't fool the people all the time. Straight business wins out in the long run. There's business enough for you both. Go after it. Your competitor will do you a deal of good. He will make you energetic, careful, more attentive to affairs, and altogether he will bring money to your pocket if you use him right. Things to think on to cure the blues. Here is a list of things for you to think on when you get the blues. They are but creature comforts, to be sure, but creature comforts have a certain pagan, non-moral power to soothe the soul, a peculiar power which neither religion nor philosophy possesses. Think then, when the universe is all tangled, and you are aweary of the world, and life's problems are too much for you, and the isness of the is seems overshadowed by the wasness of the might be. Think on these things. A chimney that draws well, a lamp that does not smoke, real cream, sweet perfect butter, a fat book containing a bully story that will last a week, a good bed waiting for you with open arms when you are sleepy and tired, a spring of pure water, a wood in summer with long grass and a brook, a new friend who has never heard any of your jokes, a woman whose face lights up when she sees you, a man, if you're a woman, who likes you and is afraid of you, miraculously finding a $20 gold piece every time you put your hand in your pocket, shoes that don't hurt. the power to enjoy all these things and not be ashamed of yourself.